We are back with more Forever Young. You're watching DSE-TV 96 or DSE-TV.com. This is our Living Green series, sponsored by the Health Hut. And with me right now is Mr. Erik Johnson. Polly is indisposed, but she will be back, right?
Yes.
We're going to continue without her for a minute. Well, before the break, we were talking about the hangovers and the food afters. And Polly was saying how if you have a hangover, kombucha tea and water tend to help. And what I was asking is, now that I've been bad and I've eaten all this horrible food, and even though maybe it's not so bad because I took my digestive enzymes, if I'm having any residual effects, like itching, for instance, you know, other than having to take like an antihistamine or something, do you have anything at the hut that I can take? What if my skin, one of the things I tend to get is I'll get little bumps all over my arms and hands.
Yeah, and that's just another one of many symptoms you're getting from, you know, the things that you're eating your body just does not like or is not able to deal with.
What can you give me?
Well, what I would do, like in the next day, if you know you've had a meal like that, first of all, you don't need any more food the next day. Like you should eat incredibly light. Like you should have maybe in the morning first thing I would do is I would get up and I would have maybe a quart of water, maybe some herb tea, a quart of water with lemon, maybe the juice of maybe 2 organic lemons in there. And that just lemon water itself, the vitamin C and the quercetin that is stored in lemons alone will start to relieve your allergy and skin symptoms. Okay. And you'll immediately start feeling better. Your brain will clear up. You'll start detoxifying. You'll hydrate the body, and the body can take a chance to relax and rest from all that food, because that takes an enormous amount of your body's physical energy. That's one reason you get tired after eating is. Food can zap, in some people, as much as 90% of all of the energy their body creates. 90%.
Wow. But what about regular other allergies that you simply can't control, you're not ingesting, like being under the trees? Say you've got a pollen problem, say you've got mold.
And you know, the truth is nobody's really allergic to pollen.
Okay.
That's just a symptom of another allergy problem.
Really?
That just exacerbates because the body can't. Because normally pollen is for somebody who's on a really clean diet, they never have allergies. They never have pollen allergies or ragweed allergies. Those are all secondary issues from underlying food allergy. They're always. I'll make the statement, which is. I'm sure a lot of professional people would disagree with, but I am completely convinced that it's all food related.
Really?
Yes.
That even ragweed, all of that.
Even ragweed, all of those are actually secondary allergies. They're not the first layer of allergy.
Well, the next question is, let's say that you have symptoms and you think you've got like a ragweed allergy, or maybe you've been told you do. If it is food, how do you find out what it could be? Because you're not noticing that when you eat, but you're just noticing you have it, you think it's pollen, or you think it's mold, or you think it's...
Almost, I would say 90% of allergies are yeast and fungus based. Okay. Gluten based or casein based. Okay. So in other words, and then also on top, you know, the umbrella or everything we're talking about also is sugar, because sugar is a pathogen that feeds all the problems in our body. So if you get sugar low enough, you might not even have allergy symptoms to things that you are technically allergic to. Sugar plays an important role in all of this, and because we have easy access to sugar, especially really, you know, just almost like pure sucrose or glucose type of sugars. So we just have too easy access to sugar. The body doesn't know what to do with all the sugar. It feeds all the parasites in the body, all the fungus, all the yeasts, all the molds. What else? I'm trying to think. What other? Blood sugar. Your blood sugar goes up, out of whack. That makes you tired. Your pancreas is overworked.
Really?
Yeah, and then you become insulin resistant, and then it leads to, of course, the body stores. The body loves to burn sugar. And what happens is, actually, when you eat too much sugar, actually, the body, people who are getting fat from sugar, they're really not actually getting fat from sugar. The body will always burn sugar right away. It's really easy. It's a very low hurdle for the body to burn sugar. But then what happens, it starts storing everything else. It'll store fat, it'll store carbs, or you know, more complex carbs. It'll store even proteins as fat. Well, yeast is sort of a secondary thing that's really zapping our energy.
Are there specific symptoms that you get if you have a yeast allergy?
Yes, definitely the skin.
Okay.
Yeah, you get a lot of itching. You get hives.
Oh.
You just get overgrowth of yeast in the entire body. So you then what happens is you actually crave more and more sugar all the time. So if you find you're craving sugar, you almost certainly have an overgrowth of yeast in your body.
You know, I just realized something. I can't believe I didn't think of this. I had a test after my doctor had thought that gluten was probably the problem. And what it was a test where they take your blood, and I don't quite know how they do this, but if you have been eating the food, it's much more accurate. If you leave the food alone and you're not eating it, it's harder to tell. But the funny part was, I had already been off gluten for a couple of months and off dairy. And when I had this test, I showed a huge reaction to both. And they told me that means I have a terrible food allergy to those things, because since I...
Yeah. Yeah.
Little bit of a...
We have a little side entertainment.
There we do. So let me go back to what I was saying here. Basically, they said that if you weren't eating the food and you still showed up to the food, and you showed up high, that it was a sign that you did have quite a serious problem with it, because if like, say that I wasn't touching dairy and hadn't touched dairy for a couple of years, but yet I had a 2 on my allergy test, that if I was eating dairy, that would probably be doubled. You know what I mean? They're basically saying that if you're not eating the foods and you're showing up as though you're having a reaction to them, that means you've got quite a serious issue with them. One of the things that I showed up to, not terribly, but high enough, was both brewer's yeast and baker's yeast. Baker's yeast was worse than brewer's yeast.
Right, because if you have, baker's yeast actually is kind of an active yeast, where brewer's yeast, brewer's yeast is an active yeast, where you said baker's yeast?
Yeah, baker's yeast.
Baker's yeast and brewer's yeast, baker's yeast is the worst, because it's an active yeast. It's ready to start creating new yeast, where brewer's yeast is it's a heat damage, so it can't create new yeast as readily. It's not as active. It's not quite as immediately active. But they're both, brewer's yeast and baking yeast are both bad.
Really?
Yeah, because if you already have a yeast problem, they're just gonna fuel the yeast. They're just gonna fuel the fire. They're like charcoal on the fire.
So many gluten-free foods contain them. Now, like I said, brewer's yeast, I don't have enough of a reaction to be a problem, but baker's yeast, a lot of the gluten-free crackers and stuff still have yeast in them. But you can now find, and other people must have this too, because you can find at the hut bread now, and crackers.
we have bread, and it's still a simple carb, but it's better because it's yeast free. It's going to be better.
It's yeast free, it's dairy free, and gluten free.
Right.
All of them.
Well, we have to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to get more into the your specific question as you're out there thinking, well, what about this? Specifically, what do I do? We're going to address that when we come back. We'll be back in a moment after a word from our sponsors.